Okay, as you can see, I added in a lot of little lines in here. It took me at least an hour to get it all in, and I don't think you guys needed to waste your time seeing all of that. Just noticed a little mistake there. Yeah, I mean, compare and see what whatever I did that's good. Maybe you did it better, or maybe you can just go in and copy a little bit of what I did. I didn't worry too much about perfect symmetry. There's this thing here, and that doesn't exist over here. Just kind of did whatever, I sort of felt like. And in a few places, I took the lines, and well, in every instance, I made them a fill shape. But in a few places, I did things like this, where I just kind of tapered them, and gave them a little bit more perspective like that. And trying to think if there's anything else major that I added in between sessions here. Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. I added some more blue lights to the neck, so I think this actually adds a lot to it. And it kind of seems like those are now pipes or something like that. And I ran them along those existing kind of pipes that we had. So feel free to do that on your end. And here's kind of an ironic follow-up to the past lesson, which was called thin lines. What we're going to do now is take away some of the linearness of these objects. And what do I mean by that? Well, watch this. You all might not have noticed this, but it's actually been in the file for a while now. I was playing around kind of on my own, and I put these I don't know what you'd call it, but it's kind of like just edging. It's just a sort of rough texture along the side of these shapes. And what you can do is there's a few ways you can go about this. You could either take the pen tool to do it, or you could grab the paintbrush. Here, I'll just sample this, and just kind of come along in the same way that we did those little light beams. Probably don't want the brush to be too thin that you can't do much with it, but just stuff like this, so I can even refine it a bit further. And I think it looks good. I think it looks great, actually. It takes away from things being almost a little bit too perfect. And in this case, it maybe kind of looks like some sort of oil spill or rusting. And we've already talked a bit about doing rust in a previous session. As you guys know, that's part of our parts library right now, so we can import some of that. But this is something I think that's a little bit different, and let's just play around with putting some of it in various places. And I don't think there's much harm in using the same symbol to do a lot of this. So just things like that add a lot to it, right? Kind of makes it look a little bit more real. You can stretch it out if you want. And because that's it's half transparent, whenever we actually do put in some texture on the yellow parts or the exoskeleton, this won't be affected by it because it'll still show through to it. And I do think what looks kind of nice is mirroring some of it in places. So for example, if you did some on that one, you might want to do something like this. Although I say mirror, but you don't want it to be an exact mirror, so what I'm going to do is flip it upside down, so at least this little part that's coming out is not, it doesn't look too obvious that you're just using the same symbol. And of course, at any time, you can just go over here, and let's call this edging. You can just duplicate the shape and then just take away some parts of it, And then another thing to consider using this, here, I'll call this one edging as well, or edging 2, that way we can just kind of swap them out in the library. Another thing to consider is going and finding places where you actually use some of this edging to delete out entirely part of the shape. So for example, here, this line's maybe a little too straight. All right, or let's just assume it is. So I'm going to go in and just move this right up against the edge of the line itself, or the shape itself, right here. And I'm going to break that apart and then just take it out. Okay. Now what's funny about that is that's actually showing through to something. back there. Oh, because that's a little shadow. So that's kind of interesting. Not what I thought was going to happen. Let's but that's not necessarily bad either. I almost kind of like that. Well, that's kind of what I'm going for, but I'm even talking about like entirely taking it out of the symbol. So let's go over here to this leg, and I'm leaving that because I do like it. But all right, so we've got. Let's go ahead and get the timeline back in here, and snap to it. All right. Okay, this layer had the. I guess I made a symbol out of those lines. And you know, I wonder if it's about time to get rid of that entirely. What are you doing for me here? Probably not all that much. I do like it in some places. All right, I'll leave it. But let me just modify it and get rid of this part of it. All right, and that part right there. Okay, so now I'll come back over here and just gonna paste in that edging that I had and just go grab it. And now this time hopefully we'll have some success. So I'll flip it around, stretch it out, and squeeze it in a little bit. And you don't even necessarily have to have it all the way up against there. So for example, I'm just going to break it apart and then take that much out of it. Okay. Now, do you even see that? Maybe not. If I change the background color, it would obviously be more obvious. Okay. That looks a lot rougher over there. But, you know, it'll show up in different places just depending on the color of it. So let's go ahead and do it again over here. Break it apart, just take it out of there. And that might be a little bit too much. Let's step it back just a tad. Oh, and you know what? I have to undo it even further. There we go. So as you can see, just that little bit of it's clipping it right there. So when I delete it, it's only taking that much out of it. And you could also go in and instead of doing the alpha transparency, you could just make it the same color. So for example, I'll just sample that right there, so you get this occurring. All right. And I think that's a good idea. I think ultimately, if we do enough of that, and maybe not overdo it, but it's going to add a lot of realism to the piece. Sorry, I'm just looking at this, and it seems a little bit too dark. There we go. And certainly, too, when we start piling in, or I don't want to say pile in, but when we start putting in rust effects and things like that, I think that'll just complement it really well. So you've got a lot of pasting to do, and trying to think, so there's some interesting places that I could put it that you might not think of right away. We could throw a little bit. I don't want to overdo it on the inside part of the chest, because that'll be one of the places I definitely put some texture in there. How about up by the head here? I don't feel like I'm by any means done with this head, because I want to do more to it, but I haven't really figured out exactly what. So I'm going to get this right up against this part here, and I'm just having a little trouble. There we go. Skewing it. Which sometimes means it's time to Just break apart the thing. Or pull it back out of the library. Yeah, I've definitely skewed it to the point that Flash is not responding well to my interactions with it. Yeah, I like that. And you can always, again, just consider also tinting it. Or in that case, that actually looks kind of nice too, just making it full black. But so tinting it to be any one of our swatches, of course, would work. But again, though, the only problem with tinting it would be, especially if it was a solid color, that if you did put some masked texture in there, you're not going to see it over top of if that's over top. So I'll step this back to being black and then take the alpha down, because essentially that's kind of the same color that we have there anyway right now. Oh, don't know how that happened. And by the way, you guys might have noticed I've been kind of playing around with the colors a little bit, just changing them here and there. And I think when everything's said and done, we're going to do kind of one giant, well, once we start shadowing things, we'll really kind of re-examine if some of these plates need to get their color changed. But in between videos, if you see slight adjustments, that's just me being kind of picky about things. And let's, while we're here, up in this region, I've kind of neglected to put much detail into these things. And we'll just go try something like that. Definitely like creating things by deleting part of them. I think it often gives you a result that you don't expect it really. What's gonna, you don't expect what's gonna happen at times, and then you can just sort of decide if that was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. Let's go ahead and take this and take the easy way out. Just put it right over here. And we're certainly piling up the detail here, aren't we? Okay, I'm going to let you guys, and I'm going to do it myself, put in a lot more of these kind of edging stains or deletions, whatever you want to use them for, and play around with tinting them, alpha-ing them, or just making them a solid color, and see what works in your masterpiece.